This is becoming, Steve, and I don't know if it's because I really like the drink, but if it's just the copper cup. But the mules, they're becoming my shit. Like I love a good mule. And I don't know, like I love the drink. I do. I'd like to do a little vodka, I like to do whiskey, do it all, but it's the copper cup. You remember they were stealing those copper cups for a minute? It like
Yeah.
bars wouldn't put them out anymore. Like I don't
There's the places used to make you like you'd have to like give them your ID or like put a deposit down on the card to make sure you gave the cup back because they're expensive.
I don't think it tastes the same in a glass.
I'm sure it tastes different. I'm sure there's something to that
There's
science.
something to it. There's something to it because we went to we went to where did we go? Grand Falloon. I
Yeah.
was getting them. I was getting
But
I was getting my mules, but they were giving them to me in a glass, and it just tastes like vodka and Sprite
yeah.
for some reason. Now, sucker tastes like a mule. I taste the ginger beer. I taste the lime juice. It tastes like a mule.
It definitely has to be in a copper cup.
It
It's
does.
anywhere that's just doing it in glasses. Like, yeah, it's not a Moscow Mule. It's all about the presentation and how
Now,
you serve it.
now understand if you got jackasses stealing them, that you got to go with the glass. I'm just telling you, it's not a mule. It's a vodka Sprite. It's a vodka gimlet with a splash of lemon juice. No BK tonight, but we're going to hold down the fort showing BK. There's Steve Serda in the building. And we do got some news, Steve. Sources say this is coming from Ian Rappaport, NFL Network. Ian Rappaport says this Chiefs wide receiver Hollywood Brown. I guess, man, his first name's just Hollywood, right? I guess like
Yeah,
with drop Marquise. Has he
he
changed it?
mentioned in training camp that he prefers to just go by Hollywood, not Marquise.
Like has he like but like has he dropped Marquise? Like I want to.
I don't think he's legally changed his name,
Well, I'm
but
just
he
saying.
mentioned like when he speaks to the media, like he would prefer to just be called Hollywood.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Peace did it. Meta World Peace. I would kill me. There was one announcer that was just calling Peace like that was his last name, the Meta World Peace, instead of Ron Artest. So he wouldn't change the full thing. So I think Hollywood needs to step in and do that. Go ahead and change that thing. But Hollywood Brown has received final clearance to practice, paving the way for him to play the regular season by the regular season end. Brown, who's recovering from surgery to repair his SC joint, should have his window open Friday or Monday. The team, however, will be cautious. So it looks like Hollywood Brown is coming back sooner than later, and not just sooner than later. The Chiefs with the Browns, then they face the Texans, then they face the Steelers and the Broncos. They got 4 games left. It looks like, Steve, that it won't be just playoffs. It looks like he will get some run in the regular season to get himself going and acclimated.
Yeah. This is, I think, absolutely massive because if the Chiefs handle business and it's a tough matchup with the Browns, like on paper and just based on how they've been playing recently, but if they take care of business the next 2 games, like there's a chance on Christmas Day they could already have this 1 seed locked up, and they don't really need to play their starters very much the last couple of weeks of the regular season. But this is massive because I think just getting Hollywood Brown back and getting him in the game and getting him some reps and getting him in the offense and on the field with Patrick Mahomes before the playoffs is huge. And the Chiefs are going to slow play it, but Andy mentioned this week he had to pass this one final test, and apparently he has passed that because he is expected by multiple other reports to be on the practice field tomorrow for the Chiefs.
That is a underlying thing what you just mentioned there, because this isn't like Justin Watson getting hurt and coming right back. This isn't like McCole Hardman getting hurt or coming right back. Hell, it's not even like Juju getting hurt or coming right back. Steve, these two guys have never played in a real game together. Like, they threw the ball around in the offseason and stuff, but now they've probably gone months without even like running any kind of routes and getting timing and stuff. These guys help. I mean, he's thrown the ball more to DeAndre Hopkins. He's got more of a rapport and understanding with DeAndre Hopkins. So this is like this. These are two guys, and Patrick Mahomes and Hollywood Brown, that in game speed, because Kelly only threw one pass to him, right? And he got hurt on it against Jacksonville in the preseason, and that's not even real game speed. Like they have not played together. So getting timing and all of that going into the playoffs, because as you know, Steve, certain receivers get out of their break different. Certain receivers like the ball in different places. Hell, we are watching it now, him and DeAndre Hopkins. Hell, we can see fade routes. We can see, go route, back shoulder routes, that him and DeAndre are still getting on the same page on where he likes the ball. Hell, there was a near pick in the game because DeAndre Hopkins was expecting the ball to be on the back shoulder, on the hip, and Pat threw it down the field. So him and Hollywood Brown just don't have a lot of any game time together and a lot of time in general together. So I think it is a big deal to get him back. By the way, who you think this is going to affect the most in the game? Is this Juju, Watson? I know it better.
It better be Justin Watson. What are we talking about?
I just feel like Justin ain't getting, man. I feel like Justin be out there open, man. I feel like Justin be out there open, man, and Pat still be getting him, man. He be out there running the wind sprints. He's not terrible.
He doesn't trust him because he's not that good. Like Hollywood,
that's not fair.
Hopkins,
I don't think that's fair.
Worthy, Kelce. That is the best group of pass catchers you could put on the field if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think, yes, the chemistry and all of that is huge. I think just being able to get live game reps with him before the playoffs is going to be massive for the offense. I'm not going to sit here and say this is what's going to transform them because he hasn't played since the first preseason game of the year. But this is what he was brought in for. And so this stretch run is all that matters. Can he be a difference maker for them down the stretch? And we've talked multiple times over the last few weeks, and we talked about it when we did the post-game show together. Like, the Chiefs' lack of speed is apparent right now outside of Xavier Worthy. Like, outside of Xavier Worthy, Juju's slow. Hopkins is not very fast. Like, Travis Kelce is slow now. Justin Watson's not the speediest of wide receivers. Like, they just don't have a lot of explosive playmakers outside of Worthy, and Worthy's still such a limited player because of how young he is and how raw he is overall in the offense. Like, this is what they brought Hollywood Brown in for, to be this difference maker, to be a field stretcher. And he's a guy that's a veteran in the league and should be able to figure some things out that Xavier Worthy hasn't quite figured out yet. And that's really exciting.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Steve. I had to go back and watch some Hollywood Brown tape again to remember what it is that the Chiefs were getting. and I still don't even know. Like, I don't even know what the plan was, because it was supposed to be Hollywood, Worthy, and Rice with Kelce, right? And now obviously Rice is not back, but you can put Hopkins in that vein or move wherever. Like, I don't know that I remember exactly. Like, of course we haven't seen it. I am really intrigued to see what it is that Andy is going to do with this group and what he intended to do with Hollywood Brown, and I'm sure maybe we see more jets and see more different things that he wanted to do would have those two guys on the edges. But yeah, like I said, I had to go back and watch him. Let me remember what Hollywood Brown was in Arizona and Baltimore. So we'll see, man. But Juju, Watson, one of those guys, if not both of them, are going to see their time impacted, which cool. They were brought for, like, I think Watson knew what time it was when the season started, and Juju seemed like he just good to be there, man. And he's an insurance guy, and that's where they are right now.
And if he can just come back and look like the player that we all expected them to get, and he didn't have great years in Arizona, but if you go back and you watch him in Arizona, like he was on some bad teams and he still had some moments where he looked like a really good wide receiver. And if the Chiefs can get the most out of him down the stretch here, like he can be the difference maker for this offense that they have desperately been missing since Rashee Rice got injured. Like this is a huge, huge win for the Chiefs. I'm actually excited about the offense a little bit now once he gets back into the mix to see what they can actually do with him and see how he hopefully opens things up, because he's the guy, like where Worthy has his limitations as a player, like Hollywood can win the way that the Chiefs need him to. He can win deep down the field, and he'll have better, I hope, like just veteran presence, like we've seen a little bit with Hopkins, where he's going to make the right move, and when he's going to understand where Mahomes is looking and throw the ball and go make the play. Like he's fully capable of that, and I think this is going to be huge for the Chiefs.
Can we, as we're sitting here drinking mules and space campers, which I feel like
I got a Coors.
You went Coors? Well,
yeah, wow. I switched to light beer mostly because I'm getting too old. I feel like garbage when I drink craft beers most of the time now.
But you want a space camper.
I still miss them. Yes, I still enjoy them. I just got to cut myself off after one or two.
Yeah, quit being a bitch, man. Drink your damn space campers, man. Drink your Amber Brock, whatever it is. But as we're sitting here having our Coors, the mountains are blue. Get you one of them Blue Mountains. The wolf killers, as some would call it, and we're drinking our little copper cup mules. Can we just slide in? I don't like to use this terminology because people like to, but can we have a Chiefs Kingdom conversation? Can we have a quick talk and have a safe space and be honest? And those of you right now that are listening to this, you can jump in and join this. Can we have a truthful, safe space? I know that when you talk to people who talk a lot of trash to you, because now it is truly, Steve, either you're a Chiefs fan or you're on the other side. But let's slide in here and have a conversation, a real one, like none of the 9 people are around. What's your confidence level for real that this team's just gonna flip the switch? Like anybody out there listening to this, like it's what we're all believing, that yes, we know they're 12-1, but this is a 12-1 that you wish looked a bit different. Your 12-1 looks different than the Detroit Lions 12-1. You can be honest and say that. Hell, your 12-1 looks different than the Philadelphia Eagles 11-2. Maybe even different than the Buffalo Bills 10-3. But it looks a little different. And the old thought is, boy, once they hit January, once they hit the playoffs, they're gonna flip the switch. But I just got this is a safe space. You're among Chiefs Kingdomites, if you could say that. What's your confidence level that they're gonna flip the switch? Because see, there's some things, Steve, that I feel all right about. Like, I believe that Spags and Andy Reid will flip a switch or change the way they do things once the playoff comes. I believe that their adjustments in what they will do will make more sense once the playoffs come. I believe Patrick Mahomes will play and flip the switch at his best. Hell, we're already seeing him value the ball more. The interceptions and turnovers have come way down. I think he will raise his game to a higher level like he always does.
Yeah.
But real quick, do I think Kelsey is going to flip that switch like he did last year? Ooh. I'm out here hoping. I'm hoping. Do I think that secondary is going to flip the switch? I hope that Steven Nelson can play a big part, but I'm more hoping than other things. Where are you? Are you confident that they can flip the switch like they've done in the past?
I'm still confident that they can. Certainly less confident in the defense right now than I was early in the season. but I still think they can get it done offensively because I think when they really want to, there's adjustments that they'll make.
You
in
think
the
they don't
playoffs.
be really wanting to sometimes, Steve?
Like, yeah, like I think that, like, I do think there is something in the idea. Like, yes, I don't think that there's the Chiefs are just workshopping everything in the regular season. Like, there is something to that. I'm not leaning into they're doing it all of the time in every single regular season game, but I do think there's times where there's like a hard-headed nature to the way that they're approaching things, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where they're like, we're just working through things. We're just trying to figure things out and test things that we're going to try to address once we get into the playoffs. But then when they want to, like they did last week, where they switched to the quick game, they can make those adjustments in game that they know they can find success with. And when we get to the playoffs, they will absolutely do those things more often because it's do or die. And so you need your best. And I still think that at the end of the day, even though it's been an ugly 12-1 season, they're winning because of the coaching. And I still believe that the coaching is among the absolute best in the NFL. Now, there's certainly teams that scare me in the playoffs, and the Chiefs defensive problems right now are concerning. Left tackle is absolutely concerning, but I still think that Kelce might not be the same player, but Kelsey's going to show up and have those impactful Hall of Fame plays in the playoffs because that's what Hall of Fame players do. We saw Gronk do that with Brady and the Bucs. Like, I think Kelce is still fully capable of doing that. I just can't write them off. And then it seems so silly to even talk about writing them off when they're 12-1. They're just not winning in a convincing way, the way the Detroit Lions are. But they keep doing it because I think they're that good. They're that good of a football team.
But Steve, I don't think it's you writing them off. I think it's just saying, all right, these games are going to mirror what we've been seeing every week. Right? Because when you say flip the switch and what we believe flip the switch, like what we saw last year when they flipped the switch was Mahomes played better. Mahomes protected the ball and made more plays. Kelce looked different. Like their game looked different because if they played the way they did in the regular season, Serda, they were going to lose. But there were some things that changed. Now, we watched it, Steve. They play close games against the Panthers and the Raiders. But they also play close games against the Ravens. They play close games against the 49ers. They play close games against the Bills. They play close games against everybody, and they have been winning 12-1. The thought is not just the close games, but, hey, are they going to flip the switch and get improvement in the red zone? Are they going to flip the switch and get improvement in getting off the field when they need to? Are they going to flip the switch and get improvement in explosive plays? Are they going to flip the switch and get improvement in not having Patrick Mahomes get hit 10 times in a game? And look, I don't think there's any flipping of the switch at left tackle. I mean, I think DJ Humphries, if he plays, I think he will be better than the other options they've had, but it's still going to be problematic over there. The flipping of the switch is going to be Andy Reid and Nagy trying to figure out a way that they can work around that issue. Because I don't think they've been sitting over there saying, all right, hold it together, hold it. All right, now when we hit the playoffs, now Humphries and Wanye at left tackle pick it up. Now Jawan Taylor, you pick it up. No, I think the flipping of the switch is how they're going to handle it. Like the secondary, flipping of the switch. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Steven Nelson is the flipping of the switch and he changes things. But to me, like this one is one. This stat here that I don't know if we've looked at it. Their last 6 games, Serda, because this isn't just flipping of the switch. This has become a trend. This is what's happened. This is a serious sample size. The last 6 games that they have played, they've all been tight because the Chiefs just play tight games. Their last 6 games, and it starts with the Buccaneers game in which they won in overtime. Final drive, the defense was on the field. The Chiefs had a 7-point lead. They just needed to hold the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers, if I remember right, sort of had to go like 90-something yards. Defense couldn't hold them. They tied the game up. Chiefs offense won it in overtime. Defense never had to get back on the field. But the last time they got on the field, they were on the field. They did not stop the Bucs. Next game, Broncos. They really didn't stop the Broncos. They blocked a field goal, but the Broncos were down 16-14 and had a 35-yard field goal that was blocked. But the defense didn't do their job to get off the field to not preserve the lead. They blocked the field goals. That's more special teams. So that's 2 games in a row the defense couldn't get off the field. The Buffalo game, they were trailing by 2 with about 9 minutes left, and they let the Bills have a 7-minute drive in which it resulted in a touchdown and made it a 9-point game and put the game out of reach. Couldn't get off the field at the end of the game when they needed. That's 3 in a row. The Panthers game, they were up 8 the last time they were on the field. They gave up a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Patrick Mahomes and the offense won it at the end of the game. They never got back on the field. That's 4 in a row. The Raiders game, they really didn't get off the field themselves. The Raiders were in field goal range, and then they snapped the ball and had an illegal procedure penalty, which resulted into a fumble, and they got the ball. And then in the last game, they had a 16 to 14 lead. And they got off the field and give up a touchdown, but they still gave up a field goal to give the Chargers the lead. And then we know that they banged and doinked that one off the goalpost, but had to get a drive, and the defense never saw the ball. That's 6 straight times, 6 games in a row, Serda. The defense had a chance to get off the field in their last possession to preserve a win, preserve a tie, or give Patrick Mahomes the ball back against Buffalo, trailing with a chance to win, and they couldn't get off the field. Hey, man, that's one that you wonder, will they flip the switch on? That's 6 straight ball games. That's a serious sample size of what they have done defensively there. So I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I still believe in this team, but my confidence is not as high. But they just got some things, sort of, that aren't like Patrick Mahomes, that's a great player can get better, or Travis Kelce, let him get some rest or get better. It's like that left tackle ain't getting better. The defense, I don't think they've not been trying to get off the field. Like there's something happening there, and there are some spots there. So I'm not as confident just because of what they did last year.
It just comes down to, like, can the Chiefs stars still make the plays that they need to make when it matters the most? And, like, obviously Mahomes can still do that, but it's like, can Kelce still do that? Can Chris Jones still do that? And I think Chris can too. Like, can McDuffie make that happen? Because we see that all the time, is that sometimes it just, the ultimate difference maker in the playoffs is like your stars showing up and making the plays when they have to. And the Chiefs have been able to do that better than any team in the NFL over the last several years. But I still have faith that, like, the defense, like, there's adjustments to be made. And I think Steven Nelson,
I do,
as long as he's not a total liability, is an improvement upon what you have. I think Joshua Williams, them finally saying, okay, Josh, go out there. We got to rely on you. We're going to finally put our trust back in you to, like, be the player that we saw last season. And for the most part, he has shown up and done that when he's been healthy and on the field. And I think the defense can still take a step forward here over the final month of the season while they're still figuring things out, because yes, that's been the most frustrating thing about this. Even though, like, the offense, I'm used to the offense at this point. I don't even get mad about the offense as much anymore. It's the defense was so automatic, and it has just simply not been that now. And you don't know if you can rely on it anymore. And so I just want to see, like, small signs of improvement on both sides of the ball. But there was a point in the season where I thought the defense was going to be something that we could rely upon in the same way that we did last season. And it just hasn't worked out that way.
And I do want to give fairness to the defense. In that run, they've had 2 games in which they've given up 17 points, and another game in which they gave up 14 points. And to be honest, in another game, they gave up 24 in regulation. They shouldn't be having to, with the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce and crew, they shouldn't be in games, Serta, where they have to get stops to end the game or to preserve the game when they've given up 14 points or 17 points. And that's 3 out of those 6 games. So the offense could help in a space to where the defense isn't sitting there having to preserve a lead when they've given up 17 points. One of the game against the Broncos, they pitched a shutout in the second half, but they still were forced to have to give up to try to get off the field because the offense hadn't been able to pick it up. So all things considered, they can help each other. All right, we do this every week when the Chiefs have the ball in this game. And to me, I am thoroughly intrigued to see, Serta, if this was just a emergency. It was getting so bad with Khalil Mack and Bosa and Bud Dupree and all the pass rushers that the Chargers have, that they went to the quick game out of necessity, out of, hey, this is the only way we can survive in this particular game, or is this going to be a continuance? Because, Serta, to me, their offense flowed at its best. They flowed at its best, and Mahomes looked good. And, it was, hey, hop right there quickly. It got Worthy involved. Now, yes, it takes away the ability to get down the field. But to me, when we say this, we said this just now, we're just talking about this, like they're going to have to do things to help these guys. Running the football, now it seems like Andy is averse to doing that right now here of late. But running the football, but also is, hey, man, we just need y'all to pass block for a second and a half. Man, that's all we need. We need you to pass block for a second and a half, and we're getting that sucker out. And they scored a touchdown on it. They threw a touchdown on the quick game with Hopkins. I hope to see that continue because I know Andy has a certain style of offense that he wants to run, sort of, but I just don't think that their tackles, and let's just be honest, really across the board, it don't just be coming from the tackles. I just don't think their offensive line, but in particular off the edges, their tackles, allow him to be able to run the offense he wants to run. And this way right here, we see that it can work. And I think Hollywood Brown would even help that even more coming back. I hope this is not just a, all right, man, that's what we did in that game, but we're going to go back to doing what the hell we do. And that this is something that is more of a style that they're going to adopt.
Yeah. We've just seen them do this in the past and then immediately revert back to the same thing. Like, I don't think this is all of a sudden going to be a way that they're going to totally adjust the offense, but I do think it's something they should mix in more. But I also think this is something that they want to do more in the postseason. And because they know that it can work and they can find success with it. I think the real answer, despite Andy's refusal, and again, I think some of this is just Andy being like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make some plays. We're going to find a way to make this work. But I do think the easy button this week is to run the football. Like, the Cleveland Browns started out the year as like one of the better run defenses in the NFL. But over the last 6 weeks or so, they've been a bottom 10 run defense in the NFL, and they're giving up explosive runs left and right now. Like, their defensive line's banged up. They traded away Zadarius Smith. They got Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a great player, but the rest of the defensive line, I think Maurice Hurst is hurt right now. Like, they're not like a totally dominant front up front outside of Myles Garrett being an absolutely transcendent player. So, like, this is a game where, okay, now you've just been hammering the pass the last few weeks. Like, this is a game where, okay, to try to mitigate the pass rush a little bit, instead of just going to the quick game and giving up some things that you might want to implement in the postseason and later down the line, like, let's lean into the run game a little bit. Let's lean on Isaiah Pacheco and mix Kareem Hunt in a little bit more. Like, I think that is legitimately the answer, but I certainly want to see more of the quick game. I certainly want to see more of the Chiefs just fast-paced offense and short to intermediate throws and let the guys win in the short routes because you don't have time for the long developing routes. Like, that seems to be how you can win. The Patriots won like that for a long time.
Listen, I just look at the drive where it really worked, and then the second half they used it again. You're right, they went away from it, but they got the ball with 3:30 left in the second quarter, started, and they had a 10-play drive. You usually think about the Chiefs in the 10-play drive, sort of that's gonna be from 6 to 7, 8 minutes. That's gonna be every bit of 8, 9, or 5 to 8 minutes. Sort of they go 52 yards, 10 plays, 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and they score a touchdown. And it is fast paced. Now, I think some of it had to do with the end of the half, but I don't think it. I mean, 3:30, sort of. That's you're not necessarily having a rush to cover 52 yards, but it comes out, bam, a quick one to Noah Gray, a quick one for 11 to Xavier Worthy, and then bam, here they go. They run it, they mix in the run, and then they go to Gray, they go to Kelsey for a quick 13. They hit Samaje Perine, he gets a run, and then bam, they get a touchdown. All of this quick pace for the Chiefs, and they end it with a touchdown with Hopkins. I just honestly think, as you said, along with running the football, they have got to do things to take pressure off their biggest problem. And their biggest problem is clearly the tackles. Their biggest problem is clearly the offensive line. And they have got to help that in some form or fashion. And that was, I don't think Pat got hit on that drive. I don't think he got hit whenever they went to the quick game because they're going too fast for him to get hit. So he got hit in that game 10 times, and they had a drive like that. They've got to figure that out. Also, to go along with that, and maybe you have more information, but obviously what's going to happen at the left tackle spot. Because DJ Humphrey, he had the hamstring thing, and when he went down and what he was doing, I'm like, oh, that's IR. That looks like every bit of 4 or 5 weeks right there. Big man hamstring, had played in a while, but they seem to be a lot more optimistic on when he'll return or how long he'll be out. And I think he's listed as questionable. They haven't even completely ruled him out for this game. And the thought is it won't be long term, but I don't think he's going to play this week, as though they said it is healed better. But what are they going to do? They brought in Wanye when he suffered the injury against the Chargers. But if we remember the way the Raiders game ended, Wanye was so bad, they said, hell, man, we got to put Joe Tooney in and we got to put Mike Caliendo in the game. And so it is a wonder which way they're going to go. How are they going to go at left tackle? And that's so important because Serda, I mean, if you can put yourself in your mind offensively how this game gets wrecked and how the Chiefs struggle offensively, it's because Myles Garrett just absolutely works over that whole side of the team. Yeah. And he is allowed to ruin the game the way he did against the Steelers. He had 3 sacks. I think one of them became a turnover on the sacks of Russell Wilson, and that was all in the first half. He can most definitely ruin the game, right? He may be the best single pass rusher in football. He can ruin the game. So that's why it's really important. To me, Steve, it would be Wanye Morris. I know he had a rough go of it in that one game, but the other games, listen, he has not been great. I've said on this very program, like, hey, man, I think Kingsley should at least get a shot. But I think, all right, you look at that and you're like, hey, man, Max Crosby and the Raiders, hey, he had a bad night. And he had a bad night that frustrated the hell out of Pat and the rest of the group where they had to put Joe Tooney out there. But I just think you are taking Joe Tooney, who is arguably your best offensive lineman, and he's going to be an all-pro, and you take him out of a place where he is an all-pro, and you take a drop at that position because he leaves it, and you take a drop at left tackle because he's not great there either, size-wise or whatever. So to me, it is Wanye Morris, and you help him. And to me, if Wanye can be the Wanye he really has been, with the exception of that game where, hey, man, yeah, He's going to probably give up a pressure or two. But in that game, Serda, he was just getting beat, and you couldn't do nothing about it. Like, he was getting beat so quick, you couldn't do nothing about it. If it's the Wanye throw, he is held up enough for them to be able to function. They just couldn't function with him against the Raiders. So I would go with Wanye Morris. But it is a big key to this game because of Myles Garrett.
Yeah. I mean, according to all reports this week, it seems like the Chiefs did dodge a bullet with DJ Humphries. Like, it's not a serious hamstring injury. It's not something that they think is going to be long term. Like, he could be back soon, but it's probably not going to be this week. And hamstring injuries are really tricky. And if you rush him back, they're just going to make it worse. And then he's going to be out. And you brought him in and gave him a good amount of money for the home stretch. Like, you're banking on him being your starting left tackle. So the Chiefs are going to play it safe like they always do with these guys. So this week, it's safe to assume Wanye Morris is going to get the start. Now, if this is a total disaster performance like it was against the Raiders, maybe it's Joe Tooney gets slid out there to the left tackle position, which Myles Garrett is fully capable of doing that. Like, we saw what those dudes on the Raiders were doing to Wanye Morris in that game, and Myles Garrett is a whole other world than those guys. Even Max Crosby this season, like, Myles Garrett has been an absolute monster. But I think you're just hoping that maybe the reset for Wanye was enough to, like, get him back to serviceable play level. And maybe that was an instance where, hey, it wrecked Kingsley against the Bengals to the point where you didn't even trust him to give him another opportunity this season. But Wanye,
no, they gave him another opportunity. It was just so damn bad.
But it wrecked him. But Wanye is a second-year player, and you hope he can bounce back and figure it out. And maybe they can try to give him some help too and figure some other things out for them to make it work. But other than that, it's Wanye against Myles Garrett this week. And you just hope for the best, and you hope he gets enough opportunities to just not ruin the entire offensive series.
And I think the other thing is with this team, sort of last week, I mean, it was coming from both angles, right? And it was like sometimes, hell, you had to help Jawan Taylor with Bosa on the other side, or even Bud Dupree, and both of the tackles were probably at a place of where they needed a chip or they needed help. This week, I mean, Jawan Taylor sort of should be able to handle the likes of Isaiah McGuire or Okoronkwo or James Houston, who's found himself back on the team. He should be able to handle that side to a point where either one, you can just flat chip and help Myles Garrett, which I think you should. I don't think there should ever be a case where you're passing and Myles Garrett's over there by himself. And I know he's going to do it because that's what Andy does. No, he's going to do it. I mean, he just told, hey, Mike Remmers, man, you have to go deal with some of these guys for the Buccaneers all by yourself repeatedly. And he's going to do it. But to me, I would always have a chip, something over there to help him out and to see if he can just hold up. And we know Myles is going to cause pressure, right? Like, there's just not going to be a spot where he's not. They just got to minimize this thing. And to me, if Jawan is able to handle his guy, at least Pat knows he can leak out that way. And at least Pat knows he can kind of go that way away from what Myles is bringing to the table. All right, that was when the Chiefs have the ball. Let's go when the Browns have the ball. And we've talked about it a bit, Serda, and you've said it. It's not supposed to be this way. The 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs, the 12-1 two-time reigning defending champions who have the number one seed right now by 2 games. The team that's won 18 of their last 19 games. You are not supposed to look at a 3-10 team and think, yo, this is going to be a tough game. You said that earlier in the show. This Cleveland game, when you look at it, it's going to be a tough game. And to me, the biggest reason why this is a tough game is because you don't know what Jameis Winston's going to do. Jameis Winston is the ultimate wild card that we've ever seen. He is a guy that they can keep his own team in the game and then also take his own team out. I mean, that is one of the most amazing things. 5,000 yards passing, 30 touchdowns, and 30 interceptions. I mean, that is the most amazing stat line one could ever think. And that's the deal is, one, we talked about it, like, you know they're going to be ready for this game. And they tend to raise their level against teams that push them to raise their level. They have already they ain't got nothing but 3 wins, and 2 of them came with Jameis as a starter, and those 2 of those wins, Serda, are against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who currently are tied for the 2 seed in the AFC, and then the Ravens, who many people still believe can get out of the AFC. They've beaten them both in Cleveland. I don't know if it's called Cleveland Stadium. I'm sure it's some sort of 5-hour energy or 5 energy, whatever the name of their stadium is. But they've won multiple times against those teams at home because he gets them ready. And he has played really well against good defenses. I know when you look at his numbers in the Steeler game, it's only like 220 or something. But it was a driving snowstorm, and he was putting the ball on the money and making plays. He threw for like 340 in that game against the Ravens. Hell, the Denver Broncos, we know, are a good defense. He almost had 500 yards passing in that game. Now, he threw six touchdowns, 2 to the other team, but he had 4 touchdown passes and almost 600 yards passing in that game. So he is a wild card, sort of that you don't know what you're going to do. And as you know, Steve, and as many of you who are listening know, the scary part is, we all know and have seen it, Steve. It's not like the Chiefs secondary can't be had. It's not like the Chiefs secondary, and it's not like they don't have guys that can do it. They toe up that Broncos secondary. They toe up that Steelers secondary. Like, they gave them problems. Jerry Jeudy has really come on as well. So that's the part is, Jameis is going to take chances, and and we've seen what he can do. And this defensive secondary and front 7 that doesn't get pressure consistently, that it kind of shapes up for him to have some potential success.
Yeah, Jameis is one of the most thrilling players in the NFL to watch because
until you playing him,
it's even when it's like his floor is 225, 250, and like 2 touchdowns, but also maybe 3 interceptions. Like,
I was gonna say his floor maybe a bunch of turnovers.
But that seems like his floor, and then his ceiling is 400 plus yards, 4 touchdowns, and maybe still 2 interceptions, because he's just going to take chances where we see a lot of quarterbacks around the league who, they want to throw to open spots, and they don't want to throw these tight window throws. Jameis is just going to let it rip. And sometimes it's really going to pay off, and sometimes it's going to totally fall apart. And that's just the Jameis roller coaster, but that's why he's such a fun player to watch. But that's why this is also a tricky matchup, because this is a totally different football team with him as the starting quarterback. Like, they're rejuvenated. Like, they're fun. They're entertaining again. And Jameis is going out there doing everything he can to try to light up the scoreboard every week. And really, I think at the end of the day, it's like, can the Chiefs defense actually create some turnovers? Because it's just not something that they do very well. And it's something they haven't done very well for years. Like, it's not just this season. A lot of people have made a lot about that this season. Like, the Chiefs aren't creating turnovers. They just don't do that. Like, as under Steve Spagnuolo, like, they just don't create a ton of turnovers. I don't know. Like, it's just like a personnel thing or something. Like, it's just not something they do a ton of. But what they have done better in years past is get after the quarterback, and they have to be better at that. But this is a game where you should be able to create some turnovers. This is a game where you should be able to bait Jameis Winston into some mistakes. And it's a game where like Jerry Jeudy has been an absolute monster lately, but Jerry Judy's numbers against press man coverage, which is what the Chiefs predominantly run, are a lot worse than when he's going up against zone coverages and things where he can try to utilize his speed and find spots in the defense and things like that. So it's like there's matchup things here that the Chiefs defense should win, but then it's like the Jameis factor of he's just going to take chances that other quarterbacks simply won't. And you just have to not let him win more often than he loses in those circumstances, because he's also going to turn the football over if you give him a chance.
You just don't know, man. His last several starts, Serda, 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, no touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But in those same games, 2 picks, 3 picks, 1 pick, 3 pick, 2 pick. Like you just don't know what it is. Last week is what, and they're gonna throw it too, right? That's the other thing. They're gonna sling it. I mean, they got Nick Chubb, but they throw that piece. Like he threw it 41 times against the Steelers. But that's the game that I am hoping to see is him go 24-41, 212 yards. You're talking about his floor, 212 yards with 2 touchdown passes, but 2 picks, and he was sacked 3 times. So like that's what you're hoping to kind of see from Jameis in this game is that, hey, you know, he's going to make a couple of plays because he's just fearless. He's going to push the envelope. But can you slow it down? And along with that, real quick, because I think this can help with Jameis as well while we're looking at when the Browns have the ball, is look, man, I had talked about it earlier this year thinking, hey, man, like this defense is just going to be a tad different the way it works this year. See, last year you had such dominant members in the secondary. You had 2, and I believe all pros in the secondary at your corners. And you could, you know, Jalen Watson as your third corner was really good to go with Snead and to go with McDuffie and Cook and all those guys and Reed back there. Like that was the best secondary in football. And it kind of helped everything. And I was pushing like, no, this thing is reversed. This front 7, especially this front 4 and the different guys they can throw out there and wait till they get a Minihue. Well, Serda, it's clear. They have been the worst team in the last, couple of months in terms of pressures and pressure rate and sacks. They've been awful at it. Now, it has come around in the last couple of games. The Raiders and the Chargers game, they've gotten, I believe, 3 sacks apiece in those games, and they've gotten pressures. I mean, hey, Justin Herbert had to get to the hot tub, the cold tub, because he was getting his ass hit in that game. So it has gotten better. But I just say this, man. I know that I come at it, and you spoke about this earlier. What can the Chiefs' great players do? That's what's going to come down to it. And we do. We push it. BK does it. I do it. You do it. We push like, hey, man, Chris Jones, man, we need you to step up. But I would just now at this point is there going to be a player on the defensive line outside of Chris Jones that is going to make themselves a problem when it comes to rushing the passer? Because he is still really up there individually in pressure rates from defensive tackle standpoint. And you see him getting doubled, and you even see him nearly getting there. But like George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu, I'll give you a bit of a pass because you're working your way back. But Mike Dana, you've been back now with the Peck issue for a minute here. And Felix and all the guys up there that have rushed the passer. Like, it's like, hey, man, if Chris Jones doesn't get there, it's almost like Spags, it feels like he's got a blitz because he can't get home with you guys. And that's just my thing that was the thing is you thought, hey, maybe the Chiefs don't have some of these name guys, but George Karlaftis is a guy who had double-digit sacks last year. Felix, you started to see move a little bit better. Mike Dana is a guy that could throw in a good 5, sacks or so. And Charles Omenihu when he gets back. And maybe he is the answer as he works himself back, Serda. But right now, across the defensive line, Chris Jones is the only person that I feel comfortable that I feel like you can depend on to at least get pressure. And many times he is having to do so, sort of being absolutely double teamed and the full focus being on him. Who else is going to make themselves a problem rushing the passer for the Chiefs? That's a big thing going down the stretch and Sunday.
I'd argue it's a bigger concern than the secondary right now, that they simply aren't winning up front enough. And it's opposing offenses have just figured out, like, hey, we'll just put 2-3 dudes on Chris Jones and make his life hell. And even at that, Chris Jones will still have a handful of plays a game where he creates and wrecks a play because he's Chris Jones. He's
still getting pressure like more than anybody else.
And you'll take those losses as long as he's not just dominating you up front for 90% of the snaps or something like that. And he's doing everything he can right now at the age that he's at, and he still looks like a dominant player. It's just that those guys aren't winning enough. And last season, Charles Omenihu helped this a lot down the stretch, but it was like they just had too many guys to account for last season. And this season, you haven't gotten enough out of Mike Dana. You haven't gotten enough out of George. You haven't gotten enough out of Felix.
I guess Josh Uche is just
that just looks like a net loss. Like that just looks like hey, we took a chance on a player to see if he could give us some juice, and it's not working out. He just doesn't have it. Like that just looks like that's a negative player for the Chiefs right now. And I just think that they really thought coming in the season, like, and Tershawn Wharton's having a nice year. He's having a contract year. Like, good for him. He's probably going to go get a decent contract from somebody this offseason. But really, it's like Tershawn Wharton's good against the run. Mike Dana's good against the run. George is good against the run. They got all these guys that are helping their run defense look like one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but they don't have any explosive pass rushers who are winning at the line of scrimmage and who are creating havoc in a way that frees up Chris Jones, where opposing offenses have to account for these guys. They're saying, no, these guys are coverage set guys. These guys are guys that we can stand up at the line of scrimmage and hold off long enough to give you the time that you need. And as long as we have multiple guys on Chris Jones at all times, we think we can nullify your pass rush. And for the most part, opposing offenses have done that pretty successfully recently.
Yeah, like here's my thing is, I didn't think these guys outside of Chris. I mean, this is not like what the Chargers have, right? This is not like even what the Broncos have. But what I thought was, Chris Jones is going to force teams to have to account for him and double team him and help him. And I just figured guys like George Karlaftis, guys like Mike Dana, guys like Charles Omenihu. And again, I want to give him some grace because he is just coming back. And hell, maybe even FAU and Josh Uche as he arrived. I thought that these were guys that if you say, all right, man, you're going to go one-on-one and you're going to get singled up, that they'll be able to get home. But they just haven't been able to get home. And they haven't been able to get home enough. Like, you look at this thing, man, you got a lot of 2 sacks, 2.5 sacks, 1 sack. Maybe 4.5 is what Wharton has, and that's coming off a 2-sack performance in the last game. So that's one thing. You want to talk flip the switch? Can you flip the switch on that? Flip the switch on, hey, these guys are going to outside of Chris Jones pressure, because if George starts going, then you have got, like, you can't just every time single or double up Chris Jones if George is killing a guy. All right, sir, to go ahead and grab me my music. This is the segment that people are always waiting on. A little certified or imposter. If you don't know the rules of the ball game, I say a statement and you say if it's certified or imposter. Here it is. The Chiefs will flip the switch on their red zone issues come playoff time. The Chiefs will flip the switch on their red zone issues come playoff time, Serda.
I think it's certified. I don't think they're all of a sudden going to be like an unstoppable force in the red zone. But I do think there's going to be some things they've been holding back that are going to be, and they'll have Pacheco fully back by then. Hopefully have Hollywood incorporated into things. There's some things drawn up for Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce and Hopkins. And like, just they're going to have their footing better as an offensive unit. And I think that it's going to be better. I don't think it's going to be totally fixed, but it's certainly going to be better than it has for a majority of the regular season. So I'm going to say that it's certified.
Again, they lead the league in the NFL in terms of field goals in the red zone.
It's ugly.
And they added several more on Sunday night. Serda, I'm going to say imposter. And I don't know that necessarily means that they can't win the Super Bowl because, Serda, I don't think they necessarily flipped the switch on the red zone issues last year. I mean, Harrison Butker kicked a lot of field goals in the red zone, even in the postseason. He kicked multiple field goals in the red zone against the Niners. He had to kick him one against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game. I mean, I've gone back. I rewatched that Dolphins game, sort of the playoff game. I mean, he must have kicked 4 field goals inside the 20-yard line in that game against the Dolphins. So they never squared or fixed that last year. And I don't, and it's baffling to me that they struggle this much. They shouldn't. They should not. They have all the pieces to have an understandable red zone offense that should be good. DeAndre Hopkins is a big target with great hands that can catch anything guarded or covered or not. Travis Kelce has been a good player in the red zone, a big target that has had major success in the red zone. They have 2 running backs that can run the football. And to me, that's where the problem is. They don't run the football enough in the red zone. And they don't run the football enough in the red zone, especially with their pass rush issues. And when the field is condensed, it means coverage is easier and it means he's holding the ball longer and there's pressure. I don't know that Andy is going to do what is needed to be done, like run the football more to make this a better one. So I'm going to say imposter. I don't think all of a sudden, man, we're going to start rolling in the postseason and now their touchdown percentage in the red zone like flips because it didn't do it last year and they still won it all. All right, predictions in this game. The Chiefs will go on the road to 3-10 Cleveland. I'll kick it off first. I don't know that this is going to be the game in which the Chiefs come out and make a statement. I do think they'll probably score some points. Now, it's probably going to be weather issues, windy there. But I look at this game and I think, by the way, is Butker back?
No,
he's going to kick. I thought I heard or saw that he may
not this week. Still probably a couple weeks away.
Couple weeks, cool. But to me, I think the Chiefs will take care of business and they will win the game. For me, I think 20. I'll say 24-17. 24-17. I think the Chiefs win. I think they get some turnovers from Jameis.
I think I'm going to go, this is high scoring for the Chiefs at this point, but I think I'm going to go 31-24.
Okay.
I think Jameis is going to take some shots, but I do think I don't think the Chiefs are going to look explosive or anything necessarily, but I think that they're going to get some turnovers finally, and that's hopefully going to lead to some easy scores for them. And so I think that's going to run up the point total a little bit in this one, more so than what we've seen recently.
That would be their season high. They have only
the Browns' defense isn't good. Myles Garrett's incredible. Their secondary is not great. The rest of the defensive line is not great. They should be able to score a little bit.
Just saying, they've had 30 points once this year, and that was against Carolina. That's the high mark. Yes, it's just weird. They do think, can we not make mistakes in the red zone this week? Trey, can you not headbutt people? Can we not have that holding penalty that wrecks a drive, or that instant pressure and Patrick Mahomes drops the ball and kicks it and it's a 15-yard loss? Can we not do that? We are out.